Welcome everyone. I hope you're doing good. My name is Sujit and I will be your host for today. I have Kumudni with me to moderate the chat. Today, we bring to you the fifth session from HRTech Integration Masterclass series. We will be discussing the best practices for integration between different HR applications using a marketplace approach. The session will be delivered by Mahesh Keni and Maheshkumar Kharade. Mahesh Kumar, as few of you may know, has been a speaker for all the webinars of this series. He possesses extensive core technology expertise in integrations. Mahesh Keni is a business and technology leader with more than 30 years of experience in building enterprise and consumer solutions for the customers across the globe. With that, let me invite Mahesh Keni to begin the session. Mahesh, over to you.
Thank you, Sujit, for this warm welcome, and welcome to all of you to this fifth webinar of this Integrate series focused on integrating HR Tech solutions. And thank you for your time today. HR Tech solutions, as you know, span range of solutions ranging from recruiting to retirement. And integration enables an important function in automating HR Tech workflows, bringing in data from varied sources, different sources, and data that is siloed in these HR Tech solutions so that you can generate insights from that data. And most importantly, deliver seamless user experience to all users of HR Tech system, be it an admin, be it candidates, HR managers, or HR Tech admins. We've covered 4 scenarios so far in our previous webinars. So let me recap all what the key points that we covered in those webinars. If you haven't participated in those webinars, I would encourage you to go and review them again. The first one focused on delivering seamless experience for learning management. So this focused on integration between LXP as learning experience platform and LMS, learning management system, and HR Tech system, so that candidates, employees, as well as HR managers can focus on the skill sets, basically, as well as the workforce planning. The second one focused on bringing in data, as I mentioned, from different data silos that exist in different HR Tech solutions, bring that in and generate insights for either workforce planning, employee management, employee engagement, and various insights that are required for both employees as well as HR managers. The third one focused on automation for recruiting workflow, and this was intended for giving the best experience for candidates. The fourth one and the last one that we had was focused on job boards integration to give recruiters as well as candidate access to multiple opportunities, and again, giving seamless experience to all of them. Now, this session we purposely focused on marketplaces. Let's look at what marketplace is and discuss more about marketplace integration. So first, let me briefly describe what marketplace is in the form of an online marketplace for HR Tech system. Marketplace is nothing but an ecosystem provided by cloud as well as HR Tech solutions providers for basically providing solutions for various customer needs. The main thing it provides is a common data model, common way of exchanging data through APIs, and the framework for building a range of solutions for various solution provider. One of the most important things that a marketplace provider provides is a robust process for making sure that all solutions work well within that ecosystem, as well as they're high quality and safeguard the data as well as security of our customer data. Now, from customer perspective, advantages are obvious. They can easily find solutions within this ecosystem. They can search for whatever solutions they need, download solution, and trust that the solutions will work right from installation. They will also interoperate very well with other solutions from this ecosystem, or in many cases with other ecosystems as well. And it also provides data connector for their needs. So if it is related to HR system that they have, which is outside of this ecosystem, outside of this marketplace, they can also find data connectors to bring in data from those solutions. Most importantly, as I mentioned, they have complete trust that these solutions are going to be high quality. They're going to safeguard their data privacy, and confidentiality of the data. Now, from the provider perspective or solution provider perspective, or product companies like many of you are part of, this gives an easy access to the framework and a lot of building blocks that are ready to be used. So you don't need to build solutions from scratch. It also allows you to basically give access to different parts of the data of different parts of HR tech systems. It allows you to basically go through the process of making sure that you can verify your solutions and publish it in the marketplace. Most importantly, from the business perspective, it gives you access to a larger customer base who's participating in this marketplace. Now, today we won't be talking much about cloud marketplace providers or cloud infrastructure providers such as Windows Azure or AWS or GCP or Google Cloud Platform. We'll be focusing primarily on HR tech solution providers. So with that, let's look at the next slide, where we'll highlight basically the process that we go through, process a solution provider will go through to making sure that they build a great solution for their customer base and publish it through this process. Most importantly, the first part is making sure that the right use case scenario is identified, discussed with the marketplace provider. The second part is logistical aspects, so all the legal aspects, as well as making sure that whatever the partner engagement requirements are, those are met, and you get the right documentation required for building this solution and publishing it as part of this marketplace. Now, after this, you go through an iterative process of making sure that you understand the APIs, different data models, which objects to be used from this marketplace infrastructure, and how do you integrate them with your solution so that you can provide the scenario that you intend to provide. After that, you architect and build this solution and go through the iterative process of making sure that the functionality is validated both internally by your team as well as by the marketplace provider in order to make sure that it interoperates well, it installs well, it gives a good seamless experience to all the end users. And finally, the external security validation and security scan happens. And after that, basically, you will go through to make sure that security processes, security requirements are met, performance requirements are met. Once that is done, you are ready to publish the solution on the marketplace. Now, technically, this completes the process, but for solution to be consumed by your end customers, you have to make sure that required collateral such as maybe a demo video or how to install or other collateral that may be required for the solution. And we'll discuss some of those later on during this webinar. So now let's see basically some of the leading HR tech marketplaces. Now we've taken a snapshot of some of the leading marketplace places that we have experience with. Harbinger over the last 20 plus years have built many integrations using many marketplace providers. But we have picked few here based on our experience, and we wanted to share our experience. First and foremost, what are the key capabilities that each of these marketplaces have? Uh, Important thing is ability to build custom application, utility application, or a full-fledged solution using like we said, the common data model, using the framework provided by these providers. Another important aspect is the data connector, as well as a single sign-on capability, which is very important to provide that seamless experience. Otherwise, you have to manage multiple users for different components of our ecosystem. Now, I won't go through the entire matrix here, but this gives you a good overview of what are the different capabilities, and this is our way of sharing our insights. The integration model, again, there are different aspects. You can integrate in the cloud. You can have ability to host it in a different cloud providers and integrate with these marketplaces. It provides REST APIs or SOAP APIs depending on the marketplace provider, and importantly, OAuth-based authentication model. Many of these marketplace providers provide a robust app platform for building solution easily. As I mentioned, many of them have great objects that are pre-built, great components that are pre-built, which you can reuse, extend, or build custom components, which again, Mahesh will talk about later on in his presentation. and importantly, APIs for mobile platform as well, so that on multiple form factors, you can have solutions available for this ecosystem. Finally, the partnership model that each of these providers have is for various categories, from app development to building data connector to providing consulting services. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of what is ecosystem each of these marketplaces provide in their ecosystem. Now we would definitely like to know more about what kind of marketplaces you have experience with. So we put together a quick poll here for gathering data from you, and we appreciate you sharing that with us. So some of the things we listed here: Salesforce, Workday, ADP, Ultipro, Bamboo HR. But if you happen to use other ones, please use them. Take your time to share your feedback. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Sujit, for putting together this poll. We have a few seconds left and data is coming in. Really appreciate you sharing in this data. Again, looks like a good mix of solutions that all of you use. Some of them are bound to be the people use more often than the other ones, but good to see a good spread here. We'll keep it for a few more seconds, and again, thank you all for participating in this poll.
Yeah,
Thanks, Sujit.
last 5 seconds, and I'll be ending the poll. Yeah, I'm ending the poll now and
Thank you,
sharing the
Sujit.
results.
Yes, really appreciate that. So looks like many of you here use Salesforce as your marketplace. Great to see that. Some of you use ADP, Workday, as well as Bamboo HR. But this is like I said, this gives you a good breadth of different marketplaces that are used. Now, with this, I would like to hand over to Maheshkumar for discussing further details, technical details, and sharing our experience. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mahesh.
Sujit, and thanks, Mahesh.
So I think even our poll has sort of led into this, I would say, because the case I plan to discuss today is all about integrating with a Salesforce marketplace. And by looking at your interest and your experience, I think we see that Salesforce had a lot of, I mean, all of you probably, or most of you know about it. So like Mahesh talked like in detail about how these marketplaces are, what they offer, but and then how do you integrate through the end-to-end process that he talked about. But let's now look at the actual example and let's go through that process one by one, how we did it for one of our customers. So to start with, let me share a few bits about our customer. So as I said, it's a background check application that we integrated with Salesforce. This customer of ours is a one of the leading background check provider. And that's why they sort of already have lot of integrations in place, be it with the different ATSs or HRIS platforms. And essentially what they enable through this integration is an end-to-end and seamless experience for both recruiters and candidates in terms of performing those background checks. But as they sort of started approaching more and more number of customers, one thing that they sort of came across is, though the Salesforce was not on their primary list, it has, like, there was a need to integrate with Salesforce. And the first and foremost question that comes to everyone's mind is, okay, Salesforce is a CRM application, and then why do we need to integrate a background check application with Salesforce? But what we have seen while working on this project is that Salesforce offers a lot of plugins that enable the recruitment workflows. And while working with this customer, we also saw that they had a lot of customers who essentially are using Salesforce as their primary application, and rather than getting a full-fledged ATS or HRIS platform, they are just using these plugins to take care of whatever minimal recruitment requirements that they have. And that's why sort of we ended up integrating this application with Salesforce. Now, as I said, there are multiple plugins. So this integration was not like a typical ATS or HRIS integration where you just put a connector in between two sides and then it starts working. There was an additional bit to it, which is about handling multiple plugins that that Salesforce offers, which needed to be integrated with the background check application. So that's how from both business side and the requirement side, the overall situation was. And to approach it, the way we sort of provided our solution is based on two key components. Typically, if you have attended like our last 3 or 4 sessions, you might have seen that when we do integrations, there is a lot of focus on the APIs. But here there was an additional component, which was different Salesforce apps that we needed to integrate with. So when we went through those apps and understood like how their customers are using it, we could very soon categorize them into, or categorize that scenario into two, I would say, major aspects. One was that where there is a core Salesforce app for the ATS or recruitment scenarios. And what we needed to do is just put an additional app which would sort of work along with the existing Salesforce app and enable the background check experience. And that's where we sort of created a separate background check app that gets added as a plugin into the Salesforce, and it's more like app-to-app communication, where once the candidates are eligible for the background check, the recruiter would push them into the another app that we have created, and then that app would take care of executing the background check workflows, and then once the results are ready, those are sent back to the another plugin. That was one type. The other type of the plugins or the apps we have observed are like some of the leading ATS and HRIS vendors also now offer a small scale plugins for the Salesforce as well, where still the most of the work is happening through those core platforms, but there's an interface that comes into the Salesforce. Now, in those cases, instead of adding an additional plugin, it made more sense to have a custom step added into the existing plugin itself. And that's where we went with an option of sort of using extension package based deployments, where we sort of extended the existing plugins and added the background check services workflow into the existing Salesforce app. So with this, we have been able to sort of take care of both most of the customer needs, where either they are using the core Salesforce apps, or they are using it from one of the leading ATS or HRIS providers. And then comes the actual integration bit, where we have used APIs. It's being a Salesforce, it's all driven by the business objects, so we use them. And Apex Trigger was the another important concept or the feature that we use from Salesforce, where we used it to get notifications about any events that are happening into the Salesforce, and then act based on that. So when your candidate is marked eligible for background check, the trigger would be sending notification to the connector APIs, and then it would take care of initiating the workflow. So as we are talking about the workflow, let's quickly sort of glance through it. And I'll not go in detail because a lot of steps are manual steps here about creating a job, applying for the job, and all of that. As I said, the Apex Trigger is the place where the whole integration kicks in. And that's where we start receiving notifications into the connector, and then it would start picking up the candidate details from Salesforce and initiate the background check workflow. Now, one thing I didn't call out here, but because we were integrating with different sort of Salesforce plugins, what we observed is some of the plugins don't capture all the necessary details about the candidate which are required for the background check. And that's where we needed a step which would essentially get that details from the candidate. So when the business object call is API call is made by the connector, it checks if all the necessary candidate details are present, and if not, then it will send an email notification to the candidate, giving them an URL which they can hit and come back to a form where they can submit all the necessary details or the missing details, and then the background check workflow will be completed. And once that is completed, the results are sent back to the case of expansion package or through app-to-app communication. So that way we have been able to enable that seamless user experience for both recruiters and candidates by me. While doing this integration, as I initially mentioned, it was different and was not as same as the ones we have discussed before. And and there are certain aspects to it. That's why it's I would say a little different, and that's what I plan to discuss on this slide. So first thing is the security aspect. I think Mahesh also the process, and that's where at multiple stages or while building these apps, you have to take care of this using certain best practices that are mentioned by the marketplace, by using certain tools for those kind of scans, and once it is ready for publishing onto the store. So no connector that we write is like the security is the last consideration in any way, but here there is an extra care that you have to take to make sure that you are sort of planning, you are adhering to all the security guidelines that are provided by the marketplace. Then the object selection. Now, when we work with systems like Salesforce or Workday for that matter, or any other where when they offer a lot of customization abilities, that's where they end up providing ability to create custom objects or extend existing objects in the platform. And that reflects into the APIs as well. So when we are working with these platforms, it's essential to understand those objects and figure out what is the common set that that particular integration need to work with, and then plan your integration workflow around that. Then comes the API throttling. Now again, like there is a lot of factors here, like there is a core platform like Salesforce, Workday, or Bamboo HR, or any other, and then there is a customer subscriptions to those platforms, and then the access to the APIs for those customers. Now here, many a times what happens is based on the licensing model, customer A may get certain number of API calls per month versus customer B may get different number of calls. So when we are designing these connectors, we need to keep all that in mind, because for example, you may have a scenario where in the beginning, at the first run, it will pick up all the data from the past and do a bulk load, and then onwards it starts transferring data on periodic basis. But in those cases, we may not be able to control how many API calls that may happen as a part of the bulk upload. And that's where handling it customer to customer, having an ability to configure it, take care of all that data transfer without getting into the API throttling aspect is also important. And that's how, so that's why while working with the marketplaces, you need to keep this in mind. And then the API mapping, because you are working with so many different objects and they may vary, it's essential to have those abilities extracted out of the connector code, so that way you are able to get control over how you want to map your data between the different APIs from the marketplace provider and your application APIs. So these are some of the considerations, and based on these learnings, we have also sort of started, our teams have come up with certain best practices and recommendations that we follow while working with these marketplace based integrations. So let's go through those one by one. So upfront data and understanding of the data model. Like as I mentioned, let's take an example of Salesforce, where we end up having core objects, then the extended objects, and the custom objects. Now, in case you are working with an integration, that's why it is essential to know what kind of object you are working with and what challenges it brings along with it when it sort of changes from customer to customer. And that's where, before designing the integration, make sure that you have looked at all the possible data objects and then have picked up the right ones, and then go from there. Then reusing the existing components and libraries that are offered by the marketplaces. I think Mahesh mentioned about this being one of the key aspects that is available for the platform vendors, where this essentially helps both on the cost and the timelines. And this is one of the, I would say, one of the key benefit that marketplace-based integrations have, where you don't need to keep reinventing what others have done. The platform comes with that. So when you are integrating with these kind of applications, make sure you look at those libraries, those components that are available, and see how they fit into the workflow or the solution that you are designing. Then the modular architecture, I think this is anyway key. It helps you keep your integration simple, as well as achieve all the reusability and that you can do as you go along the way, adding more and more integration support into your connector. Then the API-based configurability. One aspect of it we talked about in the last slide, where we mentioned about an ability to have mapping between the APIs is handled through certain configuration. The second aspect of it is any customer specific configuration that you may need to handle. So all of that can be supported through the APIs that connector offers, and then use the custom app approach from the marketplace to design that interface so that you give more control to your customers in terms of tuning how their connectors should behave. And then the last aspect is more about the non-technical parameters. So what we looked at so far are more about how you design your connector, how it will work and things like that. But there are certain non-technical factors that you might want to keep eye on. And one of it, Mahesh already talked about, which is essentially about preparing all the necessary documentation that is required when you are going to publish this app, and some of the demo videos. The other aspect could be like in some of the marketplaces, they like to keep involved into the process from word go all the way to get that app published into the marketplace. And that's where they would come with a very structured plan with timelines. In case you miss on a particular timeline, it again goes back into the whole reset, and then it adds further delays. So keeping track of all that is also important while doing all these integrations. So with this, I think we have covered all the key points that we wanted to talk today when it comes to the marketplace integration. So now let me take a pause and open it up for Q&A.
Thanks, Mahesh. Yep, so we have the first question here. The question is it possible to bypass marketplace mechanism if we have very simple and basic integration scenario?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, and there is no straightforward answer to it. But I'll tell you like how we typically approach these kind of scenarios. So in case we want to make it so seamless that there is no manual user intervention while enabling that integration scenario, then I would say there is no way that you can bypass all this. You have to get into the partnership with the respective marketplace vendor, get all required access, go through the process of building that app and publishing it. Now, if we have to look at the workaround, then many of these applications also support certain import-export features. And those are certain things that we can still automate by bypassing the marketplace, but that's not something that is recommended. But if at all it is as simple as like normal import export, then you may want to choose that route. Otherwise, marketplace is the best way to go forward.
Thanks, Mahesh. Other question we have is there any constraints on tech stack to be used?
Okay. So now I think if we recall the slide that Mahesh talked about different capabilities and the parameters through that table, it depends on what kind of integration or the app you are building. So if you are doing something that is so custom, I mean, which is on the lines of building custom apps, then essentially you may be restricted by some of the technology choices that marketplace asks you to do. But if it is more about the integrations, and if you are trying to develop a standalone connector, then I don't think there is any restriction with respect to the technology that you have to follow. You can use any tech stack that aligns with your core platform and build those integrations.
Thank you, Mahesh. Since we are towards the end of webinar, we'll be answering remaining questions over email. Yeah, so thank you to all our participants for taking the time out for today's webinar. We hope it was an insightful session. We will arrange for the webinar recording to be sent across to you. And in case you have any follow-up questions, please do drop us a line at hsinfo@harbingergroup.com, and we would be more than happy to answer them for you. Wish you all the best of health. Stay safe.